What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about Media Molecule and LittleBigPlanet. So this was something that, on the surface, it's really not that big of a deal. And I mean, we can talk about it a little bit, but you might be asking, well, Alex, it really isn't that big of a deal. I agree. I think the implications for LittleBigPlanet, that's the thing that interests me. That's the thing that I kind of want to spin this off and talk about. So basically, this was a job post for Media Molecule, and there's only one line that I really want to discuss here. Partner closely with the wider programming team to define and champion technical requirements and standards for Media Molecule's new IP. Pretty, simple enough, right? Not much to it at all. And you could say, well, there's actually a few things you could say, but they're kind of almost blanket statements. We'll still say them, but they're not like the most exciting, right? New IP, you know nothing about it. It just started recently, right? Because they just cut the cord on Dreams. And I'm not saying a month ago, probably within the last year or so, right? They started working on this game. It's a while away. You're probably looking at least 2 years before you even see the thing, and then maybe even longer until it releases, maybe 3+ years before it releases, okay? Unless this is one of the games in a new strategy to cut down on the freaking development time of video games. Eventually, we're going to be there. Eventually, games are only going to take 3 or 4 years instead of 5, 6, 7 years. But maybe it's that, maybe it's not, okay? That's really all you can say about it. Now, what I want to discuss in terms of LittleBigPlanet, I'm actually kind of surprised. This was something that when Dreams, like I mentioned, so Dreams was cut, right? And from what we kind of know, and nobody's really ever said it out loud, but it very much seems like Dreams didn't work in terms of a success for PlayStation. Now, I think for what the game is, it was extremely ambitious, and I think it was extremely good. I only ever played it for the other levels, for user-created levels, never my own, because I'm not talented, actually at all, at least in that way, right? I rely on the strengths of others in a game like Dreams. So I really think it was a great achievement. I've always talked about Media Molecule, I would say very highly. They are weird, they are different, but they're weird and different in a good way, right? They do things that truly no other first-party studio of PlayStation does. They act more like an indie team than they actually do this high-octane, right? Like a big budget and long development cycles. They don't act like that. This isn't Guerrilla. This isn't Santa Monica. This is none of them. They're their own thing. And I will always... And I prayed that they would not get shut down by PlayStation, right? And it was actually, they were spared. It was other studios that were shut down. I think they're on the chopping block. I really feel like if there was another wave of cancelizations and layoffs, I really think Media Molecule would be the ones to be shut down, which again, would be very sad. Now, what does this all mean, or where am I going with this? Well, it brings me to LittleBigPlanet, because after Dreams and everything we just talked about happened, I was pitching the idea that, do you go back to your most popular IP? The strengths of Media Molecule are the strengths. We just talked about them. And I really think they can work, but at the same time, you look at PlayStation, you look at Sony, they need the big hits. What has actually worked with combining the strengths of Media Molecule with the ability to sell that Sony kind of needs or desires? LittleBigPlanet. LittleBigPlanet was kind of that breakthrough. It's actually kind of where it all started, right? You had the creativity, you had the, not reliance, but they gave the tools and people ran with it, right? That's really where it started in LittleBigPlanet. And then it also sold. Now, as we've talked about before with LittleBigPlanet, you're not talking about tens of millions, let's say, right? This is not selling. LittleBigPlanet never at one point sold God of War numbers, or even Ghost of Tsushima, or say Last of Us, right? It's not that. But LittleBigPlanet did sell enough and was pretty darn successful or popular, whatever you want to say. Dreams was not. You know what I mean? So I always thought, well, maybe you would revert back and you would do something with LittleBigPlanet. Now, there's a pro and con here, right? Because ultimately, as we just read, it's not. So Media Molecule's next game is not going to be LittleBigPlanet. Again, I have some good and some bad I would like to kind of throw out there for that. The good is, okay, keep exploring, right? Keep trying to push your vision, or your ever-changing vision, or whatever. And, and as I've said before, you don't have LittleBigPlanets, you don't have The Last of Us, you don't have Killzone, you don't have any of these games, right, or franchises, if you don't at some point try them. You don't, you literally need to make new IPs to have them catch on. And Dreams, they tried and it failed. But LittleBigPlanet, they tried and it succeeded, right? So just on the merit of creativity, they're, like, I support it. You know what I mean? Like, make your new IP, and maybe it's the next Little Big Planet. Not necessarily like it has to be a one-to-one, but it could be like the next thing that catches on, okay? On the negative, selfishly, and it's something actually we've talked about recently with Little Big Planet, number one, I do want the franchise back. I think Sackboy will kind of always have a place, more of like a modern day, when I think of Sly Cooper and even Crash Bandicoot before him and Spyro and stuff, he's not the same as like Nathan Drake or like the modern day Kratos or even things from like Infamous or, things like that. Like, you know what I mean? It's not the same, but Sackboy I do think has some power, and so also, you have the nostalgia for me. Like, I really like those games, or at least the first two, and I never actually played 3. It's not like I didn't like it. I just never actually tried it. And Media Molecule never made it, so I guess it's okay. I want that franchise to come back. I think there's more you can do there. I think even, a Sackboy spin-off solo game, I think that was actually really good. Again, not from them, but still like a clever concept. And then, what we just talked about, then there's like the recency bias. We just had all of these levels like freaking destroyed and taken away, by time, where, Sony takes it down and they're just leaving it down at this point. And as I've discovered, because like I said, I never played 3, I've seen a lot of Little Big Planet posts all of a sudden on Twitter, probably because I'm liking certain posts, so the feed is just, the algorithm is pushing it through. I guess Little Big Planet 3 and what was taken down was maybe actually all of the levels from all of the games. You can correct me if I'm wrong, in the comments, but I saw a lot of posts about how it's not just user creations from Little Big Planet 3 that was stored there and then taken down. It was actually all of the levels. So if that's true, the legacy of Little Big Planet was just freaking, crushed with a meteor. So selfishly and nostalgia-wise and all that jazz, I want it back. And then recency bias of, if you're not going to ever give us these levels back, which certainly they are, dead forever, gone forever, you can at least, maybe give us a new avenue to create. Does that make sense? Like Dreams is an avenue of creation, and it'll be sad one day, and I'm sure it will happen because it'll happen for all of these games, when that gets taken offline, right? And all of those user-created levels of Dreams, just like all of the Little Big Planet or games that are always online, and when they're shut down for good, right? Those things will eventually happen. So, like, the best way you can kind of counter it is either make a new Little Big Planet. Well, you could give us back the levels, but I mean, if we're just going to just leave it be, right? You give us a Little Big Planet 4. I saw people talking about maybe like a remaster or a remake. I mean, it actually has been enough time since at least the first 2. You could do some sort of remaster collection with 1 and 2. Now, again, would Media Molecule do it? Obviously not. That's not what they're working on, right? But I would like to see Little Big Planet return in some way. But again, where we're at right now, it doesn't seem like it'll be them. I also want to kind of throw it in just as like almost an afterthought, but I still want to get it into this video. I also wonder if, like, they don't want to do it themselves, and Sony kind of respects that. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that sometimes happens with these studios. Like, when you have a studio that's been, like, sitting on this IP, eventually you kind of have to ask the question of, sometimes they're told what to do. Sometimes they have more freedom than other times or whatever. So maybe it's just a thing where it's like they really don't want to go back to Little Big Planet, or the internal decision has been made to move that franchise elsewhere. So maybe it can continue, just not through them, right? I don't know. And I feel like that does happen from time to time. It's worth saying, even if you can't talk all that deeply, on that issue. I do wonder, though, if like they have made some sort of declaration that they just don't want to do Little Big Planet anymore, which is fine. They've made their legacy. They started the franchise, and ultimately whatever happens to it happens to it. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.